Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Diane's been working with buyers and sellers in the Missoula market for over 25 years. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction and brings us guests who provide useful information on industry-related topics and trends. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO.
Hey, so nice to have you on board on this New Year's weekend. Thank you for joining Missoula Real Estate Today. Brought to you by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate, who is she has done an awesome job this past month donating some of her Missoula Real Estate Today airtime to nonprofit groups. We've got another great one in here today. Cindy Weiss is the executive director of Missoula's YWCA. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
You betcha. Your professional background, Cindy, prior to taking this job, and then we'll get to what eventually led you there.
Well, you know, I've actually been at the YWCA for 30 years.
Wonderful.
So I started right out of college. In fact, even before I'd finished here at the university, I became a volunteer with the YWCA, and it just captured my heart. And so I took a part-time job as I was finishing up my senior year and have been at the YWCA, but for a 2-year stint at our State Domestic Violence Coalition in Helena. I've worked at the YWCA my entire career.
Wow. I suppose the one-word answer is everything if I ask you what the executive director is responsible for doing.
Well, certainly a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yep.
What all's involved there?
So, you know, overall, I am responsible for the day-to-day operations of the organization, and whether that's helping to support the staff members we have there. We have a 70-member staff at the YWCA. I also am responsible for ensuring that we have the financial resources to carry out our programs, so the fiscal end of it. And then I also am probably the primary spokesperson in our community for the great work that we're doing there.
Very good. What are the primary focus areas of the YWCA? Whose needs are your number one priority?
Well, we primarily are working with women and families. Mm-hmm. We have 5 program areas. Our signature program is our Pathways program for survivors of domestic and sexual violence. The YWCA has been the primary provider of those services for 40-plus years in the community, and we operate a 24-hour crisis line, domestic violence shelter for those fleeing violent homes and their children. We also offer support groups and a lot of support service or wraparound services for survivors, trying to meet the needs that they have as they're trying to break free of the violence for good. We also have our largest program these days is the Family Housing Center, and it is a shelter program for 1- and 2-parent homeless families, families that are unhoused. We jointly operate that program with Family Promise, which is a program of the Missoula Interfaith Collaborative here in the community. And on any given day, we are serving anywhere between 23 and 31 families in that program in our residential shelter.
You know where interfaith collaborative community, where I've heard that term, where I think its path has crossed before. We've had Paige Pavolone with the Missoula Works program, I want to say. I hope I got that right.
That's right.
And they're a part of that family too, are they not?
Yes. So the Missoula Interfaith Collaborative, like the YWCA, is an organization with multiple programs, and Family Promise is one of those programs. Family Promise is a collective of faith congregations and businesses in the community that work together and take turns providing support to families living in the Family Housing Center. And they've been a partner of ours since we opened the Medlark, which is where the Family Housing Center is located.
Yes.
And even before that, we worked very closely with Family Promise because the YWCA and Family Promise were the only 2 providers of emergency housing for unhoused families in the community.
I'm going to ask you a little bit more about the Meadowlark here pretty quick.
Sure.
Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO. And my guest this week, Cindy Weiss, Executive Director of Missoula's YWCA. Man, I can't imagine sometimes. Domestic and sexual violence, Cindy, no one should ever have to face that. How serious of a problem is that becoming in Western Montana?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been a problem for a long, long time. One of the things that I had hoped when I first started work in this field, I started as a volunteer in our domestic violence shelter. I was an advocate. And, we talked at that time about working ourselves out of a job. 30 years later, it's one of my disappointments that I was not able to work myself out of a job. It has been a social problem for a long time. It continues to be. I think factors that are continue to kind of let it exist is the fact that it's hard for survivors of domestic violence to leave violent relationships and get the support they need and have the financial resources they need to make it on their own. And, it's also having an impact and sometimes a lifelong impact on children who are living in homes where there's violence.
Yeah.
So it's something that we continue to have to address.
Yeah, a very sad domino effect a lot of times, I'm sure. How difficult it must be for many of the women you help to come to you. Do you provide assistance to a lot of them who just, they never thought they would be in that situation?
Mm-hmm. We do, and we serve women and men, a gender diverse population who are fleeing violent homes. And primarily, we can provide a safe place for them to be and to stay until they are able to resolve their safety issues, maybe find another place to live or be able to return home safely. We also provide support services for them, whether that is we have some transitional housing, apartments that we lease in the community where we can provide up to 2 years of housing support for them. We work specifically with the children because we know that children who have been raised in or lived in homes where there are violence, that those types of emotional disruptions and the trauma that they experience or observe can have a lifelong impact. And so we try to provide services that will perhaps change the trajectory of their lives and provide positive experiences for them, and also adults that they can depend on.
There has to be a lot of fear in many of those that come to you. What do you try? What do you do to try to alleviate that and reassure them that this is a safe place and a step in the right direction? Well,
if they're staying with us in shelter, we have a very secure facility, and so they know that when they come in. They see it in the way we conduct business there, that their safety is our primary concern. We also are working with them to try to set up in the community and in their lives outside the shelter safety precautions, whether it's working with our local crime victim advocate program to help them get an order of protection, whether it's helping them safety plan, we call it, is like, all right, once you leave the shelter, what are you going to do if this happens to remain safe?
Yeah.
So we're working kind of all angles to ensure that they're safe when they're with us and they're safe when they return home.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO. And my guest is Cindy Weiss. Cindy is Executive Director of Missoula's YWCA. You provide lots of assistance to entire families as well, Cindy. When might families need you?
Well, in our family housing center, if they are unhoused, they need us for a place to stay. They can stay for up to 8 weeks, and then we actually, if we have room, can extend them for weeks beyond that and provide support. We have a rent assistance program called Rapid Rehousing. And it is a HUD-funded program where we can provide not only cover deposits, but also rent assistance for up to 24 months. while they get back on their feet, whether that's they're finding more sustainable employment, building their income that way, looking at other mainstream resources that are available to them. Sometimes it's just resolving past due bills that have been a barrier to them getting into their own housing. But as we all know, rents in Missoula have increased significantly.
Oh, boy.
Since COVID hit. And so it's been quite a struggle for us to, one, find rentals that are available, even if our families have rent assistance that they can use, and then finding units that are going to be affordable to them after the rent assistance ends.
You have some youth service programs I know you want to talk about, and we'll get to that in a minute, but since we've kind of already started to explore this, the area of emphasis that you got going on that pertains to families, that rapid rehousing rent assistance program you just brought up. What is it exactly? Why is it such an important initiative for you right now?
Well, it's very important for us because it is significant funding that is available for unhoused families who, but for the assistance, would not be able to afford a rental or get into it, and families that have been homeless. And so in our community, on any given night, there are at least 25 of those families who are staying with us. It is something that has been able to stop homelessness for families and really, make it episodic rather than chronic. So we could provide rent assistance and then they are never homeless again. The key to that program is finding local landlords who will partner with the YWCA and rent to our families, even though they might have lower credit scores. They might not be able to show the income when they first come in to support the rent. That's what the YWCA is for, because we can say, well, yes, but we're going to guarantee rent for this period of time. And we're going to pay a deposit. We can even pay double deposits through that program.
Well, I put this question down. I can't imagine there'd be any, but I'm sure there are at times. Objections you might hear from landlords when you do present this program. I imagine you have to get in front of a lot of them one-on-one and state your case.
We do. And I think landlords our concerns range from, if someone isn't paying their rent, do they have buy-in to be a good tenant? And so we talk about how the YWCA is going to support them on a month-to-month basis in ensuring that they are paying. They do have to pay a portion of the rent, but it's affordable for them. The YWCA is there for the landlords if they are having a problem. Call the YWCA. We're doing case management with these families. Okay. And then, it's just the unknown. If landlords have a lot of potential tenants to choose from right now.
Sure.
So we're asking them to, whether it's based on goodwill or taking a leap of faith, consider renting to those that are using the YWCA programs and that will be supported by the YWCA for up to 2 years.
Is there any sort of a tax incentive for doing it? And if yes, cool. If not, has that ever been approached to see that might be an added incentive for them somewhere down the road?
I don't know about that, but I do know that our city and county are looking at all kinds of tools that might be available and might make it incentivize landlords to participate, whether that's a risk mitigation fund where if damages occur, that there is a fund available for them to access. Being able to pay them double and sometimes triple deposits can help as well.
Incentivize. That's the word I needed. That's better.
Yes.
That's better than just tax breaks. But good. Well, keep pushing that. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO. My guest, Cindy Weiss, Executive Director of Missoula YMCA. Oh, also, thank you to some of Diane's marketing partners that help this program every weekend. Miles Link at Opportunity Bank of Montana, Rob Fleming with Man Mortgage, and Carol Blodgett at MakeItMissoula.com. Back to Cindy Weiss with the YWCA. We started to talk about this just a little bit. I want to back up so you can go into a little more detail, Cindy, on some of the youth services offered at the YWCA?
Well, we have a couple ways that we're working with youth. And one of the programs that I haven't mentioned yet is our Planet Kids Supervised Visitation Center. So at Planet Kids, the YWCA is able to provide monitors to monitor visits between children and the parents who don't live with them. Many of those parents are court-ordered to have supervised visitation only, and the YWCA is a neutral monitor for that. We can also monitor exchanges, custodial exchanges between parents who, for reasons of domestic violence, other abuse in the prior relationship, shouldn't have contact with each other. And so a parent can drop off a child at Planet Kids. We'll monitor that until the other parent comes and picks them up, and they don't have to have contact with each other. That has really been a significant resource for our community because it's really decreased the number of volatile situations that children have to witness when their parents are divorced or separated. It's really decreased the amount of time that people are calling law enforcement to respond to, risky situations. And kids love Planet Kids. They love coming there. It's a nice, neutral, safe, and fun place for them to visit with the parent who doesn't live with them. So that's one of the ways that we're working with children. We also have a youth services program at the Meadowlark, and we have youth advocates who are working on a daily basis with the children who are living in the 2 shelters at the Meadowlark. And on any given night, we have between 60 and 80 children who are living with us. And so the youth advocates are there to provide support, fun activities for them, but also to be advocates in helping work with the family to address any of the complex needs some of these children have from witnessing violence, experiencing trauma, having educational disruptions because of being unhoused. Our youth advocates are there to try to make a difference in their lives.
Yeah. And you've got to have those distractions, diversions for kids, just so they can be kids in spite of everything that's going on, orbiting around them trying to be a kid. What do you get to do at Planet Kids?
Well, Planet Kids, there's all kinds of games and activities, that they have available, and primarily it's a place where kids can come in and, like you said, just play.
Yeah.
And know that they're going to be safe. Maybe they're just re-engaging in a relationship with this parent. And Planet Kids is there to say, you know what, this is going to be okay. I think that most of the parents who are there visiting with their children find that Planet Kids is also very comforting to them as well. And then at the Meadowlark, our kids, there's certainly activities on site. We've also had partnerships with Parks and Rec. So the kids in the summer were able to go rafting. They're able to participate in all that the city has to offer for recreation. And again, develop friendships with other kids that are living in the shelters.
About how many people do you help every year? I took a peek at the website, so I kind of already know the answer to this, but I think it will shock a lot of our listeners, like it did me, to know that that approximate number.
In our programs in total, we serve around 3,000 people a year, and that's 3,000 people. A large percentage of them really come to us in desperate times of their lives.
Sure, of course.
And they're at the end of their rope and may have no other place to go. And that's why the YWCA exists, to help them.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO. My guest, Cindy Weiss, Executive Director of Missoula's YWCA. You have mentioned it by name a few times so far. You have a beautiful, relatively new facility. Your next door neighbors are pretty good friends of mine, Bev and Holly, over there at the nursery. Yes. Can you talk about how it came to be? That had to have been a vision, a dream come true. I know it didn't happen overnight, but it is, at least from the outside, I've not had the pleasure of a tour, but from the outside, it's a very impressive, inviting, welcoming looking facility. And it's called the Meadowlark, right?
It's called the Meadowlark, and Denny, you must come take a tour.
All right.
And we
You got
have
a deal?
tours actually every month on the second Tuesday of the month from 12:30 to 1:30. We have, it's called YW Connect, and they're free tours of our programs and the facilities. So
I would love to do that.
yes, that'd be great. Well, the Meadowlark is a vision that we had from 6 years ago.
Right.
You know, as we were serving more and more women and children in our domestic violence shelter, having to house male survivors in motel rooms. Our crisis line, the number of calls coming in was increasing. We were also seeing a much greater need for emergency housing for unhoused families, just because of the limited number of high-paying jobs and the escalating cost of housing. We decided that we would reach out to the community and share our vision for helping those in need. And the community responded with generous support to help us build the Meadowlark. Mm-hmm. And we selected that name because the Meadowlark is the state bird of Montana.
Sure.
But also, in indigenous folklore, its presence is a sign of peace, safety, and easier times ahead.
Oh, very good.
And that's exactly what we hope to provide to people who walk through the front doors.
Yeah.
So we designed the building with that in mind. We started a partnership 5 years ago with the Missoula Interfaith Collaborative and decided that instead of the two Family Promise and the YWCA operating two separate housing programs for unhoused families, that we would work together and operate out of a central facility. And so inside the Meadowlark, we have the Family Housing Center, where we jointly operate that with Family Promise.
Wow. So before the Meadowlark, there was what, kind of here, there, and everywhere, or wherever you could. That must have been frustrating and challenging. Not that it's not challenging now,
right.
But
it was
how you could keep
challenging.
track of everything. Yeah.
Yes. Before the Meadowlark, the YWCA's domestic violence shelter was in a 7-bedroom house in a residential neighborhood.
Oh my.
We needed a lot more room than that because we were serving 250 women and children a year in that. And then the YWCA operated our emergency housing program, and we did it out of motel rooms. So we would rent between 7 and 12 motel rooms every single night. It was becoming really expensive. And it was also, we were finding it challenging to find motels that would be able to rent to us because, as we know, in western Montana in the summer, motel rooms just fill up, and then
Sure.
during football season. And so it was really hard. We just knew that we were on the verge of losing housing altogether. At the same time that the YWCA was providing housing and motel rooms, Family Promise was serving 4 families a night in churches. So churches would rotate and host these families for a week at a time. And that was becoming also, it was challenging for the families. It was difficult for the families to have to rotate.
Oh, for sure.
And then to have the volunteer corps, it was all volunteer effort primarily. And it was just really a lot of work.
Yeah. And, getting back to when I've interviewed Paige Pavolone from Missoula YWCA, she related those situations too.
Yeah.
That's, wow.
I mean, it's such a generous thing for those congregations to do.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And they are still involved. The congregations
Yeah.
are still involved. They're just hosting at the Family Housing Center.
Yeah. Yeah. About, as far as the Meadowlark, about how many residents can you accommodate at any time?
Sure.
Is there an average length of stay?
Yeah. So good question. We have 13 private rooms in our domestic violence shelter.
Okay.
And a room can hold a family of 5. And then in our family housing center, we have 25 private rooms. And then we also have an overflow dorm between the 2 shelters that can house up to 6 families. So in total, we could serve 44 families there. And unfortunately, we are full or close to full most of the time.
That does not surprise me.
No. And We anticipated when we opened the Family Housing Center that we would see an average stay of 30 to 45 days because we have this great rent assistance program. We thought we could bring folks in off the streets and then immediately get them into housing, but things changed. And so right now, our average stay, I think, at the Family Housing Center is 4 months. And our average stay in the domestic violence shelter it really varies quite a bit because some people will come in and maybe just stay with us for a couple days. Others will stay up to 90 days with us.
All right. What is a common misconception about the YWCA that you'd like more people to understand more clearly?
Yeah. Well, I think one of them these days is that the YWCA serves only women and children. And we are serving a gender diverse number of people from the community. Another thing that is a misunderstanding right now is that the YWCA is a faith-based organization. We were for decades and decades, and now we are an organization of people of many beliefs and values. And literally, our name is YWCA. It's just the acronym these days.
Gotcha. And because I remember what it stood for.
Yeah,
back in the day.
And when I started, we were the Young Women's Christian Association.
Yes,
ma'am. And there's a very interesting history behind that. But in the early 90s, the YWCA just adopted their acronym as the name.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Interesting. One of your revenue-generating efforts is the 2 YWCA thrift stores here in Missoula. What can you tell us about those?
Well, thank goodness for the thrift stores. That's what I can tell you. Okay. They are a business that we have operated since 1965.
Gosh.
And they fortunately are a business that will do well in both robust economic times and economic downturns. Mm-hmm. And so we take in gently used clothing and household items.
Yeah.
And sell those to the public at a fair price. All of the net proceeds from the stores go back to support our programs at the YWCA, and it really provides about a third of our organizational revenue comes from Secret Seconds.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, good stores. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate, here on News Talk KGVO. My guest, Cindy Weiss, Executive Director of Missoula YWCA. And we're getting tight on time. You've been a great interview. I want to ask you at least one more question about success stories, Cindy. Anything that you have done or been a part of that brought you extra satisfaction as the executive director?
Well, yes. As I mentioned early on, I've been at the YWCA for 30 years. I started out as a volunteer in our domestic violence shelter, worked in our domestic violence shelter for many years. And this has happened on more than one occasion where a child who I remember serving in our domestic violence shelter with their mother has come back to the YWCA as a volunteer or a community member who's supporting us financially. And I know, and because they will tell me, that the YWCA made a huge difference in their lives.
That is awesome. That is a great success story that probably just keeps on giving. You know, you'll have those people coming back all the time. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. My guest has been Cindy Weiss, Executive Director of Missoula's YWCA. Cindy, if folks would like to know more about the YWCA, help out in any way they can, time, treasure, whatever, what's the best way to get in touch and find out more?
Well, our phone number is 543-6691. If you're interested in volunteering, you can call that number. If you're interested in providing other support, please call that number. You can also find us on our website at www.ywcamissoula.org.
And I promise I'll come take a tour. I'll book a tour.
We'd love to have you. Yes.
Thank you so much for being on the program. Great job. We really appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks, Denny.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Email dianebeck@windermere.com, or for a complete directory of Diane's listings, visit movetomissoula.com. That's move, the number 2, Missoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.